So there's a lot of news. We're going to explore much more of this in Greece with Uri Dadush. He's a Senior Associate at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Good to see you again. It's been a little while. There's been an awful lot of news, especially with Greece, but in many respects, it seems to be repeating itself as well. Let me start with the recent vote. Procedural-wise, there's going to be another vote by the Euro group to decide whether or not they're going to accept all this. But before we get there, what do you think about Greece's actions in the last 24, 48 hours?
Well, I think it's quite remarkable that Mr. Tsipras has the kind of firepower to bring around a very large majority of the Greek parliament in support of reforms that are actually tougher than the ones that the Greeks rejected in the referendum.
A lot of people think that, well, Greece said yes, must be a done deal. But obviously, it's not so simple. The rest of the members in the Eurogroup now have to vote, first of all, to say yes to it. And then even after they say yes to it, there are a lot of individual votes, right?
Yes. The German parliament has to vote tomorrow. Already the Finnish parliament, which is one of the hardline countries, have given a signal, at least at the committee level, that they want to go ahead. So my expectation is it's going to take time. It's going to be another difficult negotiation to get to the details. But given that the heads of state have now committed to this course of action and the European Central Bank has opened the spigots already, I think there's a high likelihood that the deal will go through in the end.
You know what's strange about all this is the IMF, which is an institution of generally very conservative and calm, and you wouldn't expect them to make any noise. Of course, there are recent reports saying that the unsustainability, I should say, of the Greece debt is a real issue, which goes against what a lot of people have said, and it actually matches what a lot of critics are saying is what's wrong with the deal. How do we put all these different parties together, and where does that ultimately leave Greece in the long run?
Well, I think that the IMF is another joker in the pack here, because in principle, if the debt is unsustainable and the financing package does not add up,
why vote for it?
The IMF is not supposed to support such a course. So
do they need the IMF to say yes to this whole deal? Did they have to say yes?
I think that the Europeans could go without the IMF, but I don't think they will. I think politically they need the IMF. Technically, they need the IMF, and they're going to push very hard for the IMF, with the support, I have no doubt, of the United States, for the IMF to go forward. So my prediction is that the IMF will, in the end, be part of the rescue package.
And one of the reasons why Europe, or the rest of the world for that matter, cares so much about this is that it defines what the euro could be, right, in the future, what they should have been with this fiscal union, this political union, which we've seen some fiscal union, but very little political union. Let me start with the fiscal union part of it. What more can be done, or should more be done?
Well, that's a long path.
We have 15 seconds.
It's a long path ahead, but in principle, there should be something like the federal government of the United States.
It's really hard. It's basically very hard. You're saying it's very hard to do.
A common fiscal policy.
To get them all to agree.
And it's going to be very hard, and there's no political appetite for this whatsoever at present. So I think the outlook long-term for Greece remains very uncertain, unfortunately.
If they can make it the next couple of weeks, they can get the banks reopened, they can get some sense of normalcy. Would you argue, and I didn't think I'd ever say this, a victory for Europe as a group, that they did overcome a very big problem?
No, I would want to wait a couple of years before I said that. I think Greece is going again into a very difficult path of fiscal consolidation. They're going to have to show that they're really serious about implementing the structural reforms. Bear in mind that they're doing this very reluctantly, there's not a lot of ownership in Greece. So Greece is by no means out of the wood, and Europe is not out of the wood.
In terms of Greece, a lot of people are skeptical that they're actually going to do what they say they're going to do. And I'll refrain from any further comment, but I do want to get your thoughts whether or not they can do the things that have been promised.
I think it's going to be politically and technically very difficult for them. They have not been able to do it so far. And that's part of the reason we're in this kind of situation. Furthermore, we still do not have a clear commitment on the part of the Europeans to cut back on the debt, to do the debt reduction. And I think politically, that's also going to be very difficult.
Very quickly, if there is a snap election, which was what we alluded to earlier, does that change anything, or is it just more noise?
My suspicion is that even if there is a snap election, from what I understand, Mr. Tsipras remains, it's difficult for foreigners to understand, remains a very popular figure in Greece. So my sense is that that might actually strengthen his position. But, you know, nobody really knows.
It's been quite the last few weeks following the story. Uri Dadush, thank you very much for explaining some of the complex parts of this deal.